Here we are on the second floor of the State Archives building in Louisiana, and here we preserve, we make accessible, and we make secure the documents which record Louisiana's rich history. We're going to walk here. As I mentioned before, the second floor itself is a vault. We're going to go within the vault of the second floor into a vault which has an inner vault. So we're really going into the I hate to use the word, but the bowels of the State Archives here. We're going to walk right back here, and against the back wall, you'll notice all of the original acts of the Louisiana legislature, beautifully bound in leather-bound copies. I want to point out that the Louisiana legislature began before statehood. I'm going to pull out this document here, this packet of information, which dates back to 1804 and 1805. Now, this is Territorial Louisiana. Louisiana did not become a state until 1812. It was the 18th state in the Union, and these are records of the original territorial state or part of Louisiana. Okay? Now, put this back in its place, safe and sound. As I mentioned before, we focus on preservation, we focus on accessibility, and we focus on security. Those are the three important parts of any archives. Even personal archives. Individuals are all archivists because you have your scrapbooks, your yearbooks, and things of that nature. We're going to go now into the inner vault where there are some documents that we keep here that are very special, because by studying these documents you can learn about our state's history. For example, one that I like to point out, and which is a focal point of all genealogists, is a Confederate pension application. Veterans or their widows applied for the Confederate pension, and they would receive some money from the federal government. Not that much, unfortunately. But in this application was personal information which assists genealogists in learning about their ancestors. It is a most valuable tool, and Louisiana State Archives is, if not the premier, one of the premier genealogical resources in the state of Louisiana.
How might a genealogist use that to learn more about history?
Well, for example, some of these pension applications named the children, and that's how they go back one generation on to another generation. That would be one way that they would use it. They would also use it to locate the residence of the veteran following the Civil War. For example, you can tell where these people came back to settle. Here's another important document we see when we study our history. This is a certificate by the first territorial governor and the state governor, William Charles Cole Claiborne. Many people who go to New Orleans know that Claiborne Avenue is one of the major thoroughfares. All of these documents are very important to historians, to archivists, to genealogists, and also to records managers. Although the focus of State Archives is governmental documents, we do have some memorabilia. For example, this is a suit actually worn by Huey P. Long when he was governor. It's very interesting. The family of Huey P. Long has been very generous to State Archives. They've loaned and donated some items which are one of a kind, and very, very important, because many people who come to Louisiana, especially from out of state, Huey P. Long is the first topic they wanted to discuss.
When was Huey governor?
Huey was governor in the late 20s up to 35 when he was killed, assassinated. So that's the period that he was in. Right after that, right after this period, we're going to come back here because it's historically relevant. After Huey was assassinated, we went into the Great Depression of the late 20s and 30s. Now, this is an item representative of this period. It's a work progress administration federal program which hired individuals with certain talents. Some are art, some are seamstresses, and they make these fine WPA dolls. And as you can tell, look at the intricate detail. The production of this is fantastic. These WPA employees were hired for periods of no more than 12 weeks so that they could give other individuals an opportunity to make a little bit of income when the Depression hit and the recession was so bad and people were so economically strained.
How were those dolls used?
Those dolls were used for display. and they were just used as a piece of culture and art for Louisiana. Matter of fact, some of these dolls were discovered in basements in facilities in New Orleans, and we were fortunate enough that they donated some of these dolls. Look at this little hat. Look at his hat, Jean Lafitte's hat. That's another topic completely about Jean Lafitte. We're going to jump here. This is a scrapbook. We received 26 scrapbooks from the Long family. This is one of the scrapbooks. We're going to take a look at this and see what this might have interesting to the. Now, the historian can come here and read about Huey and his activities. Now, this is quite interesting for the historian and the person on the street also. Long plans to enter 1936 race for presidency. He was assassinated in September of 1935, so this was a little unfortunate that he did not get a chance to do what he thought he wanted to do as far as national politics was concerned. And that's Huey, determined.
What kind of man was Huey Long?
He was a very dominant individual, a leader, a benevolent leader. He knew what he wanted and he pursued it. For example, the state capital of Louisiana, which is the tallest in the nation, was made, was built, was constructed in just over a year. Today, that's an unimaginable accomplishment. We'll walk back here into the vault again. I want to point out this because this is very interesting. Very few people realize that Southeast Louisiana was once a republic. It was the West Florida Republic. There are only three in the nation: California, Texas, and the West Florida Republic of Louisiana. It lasted and endured 74 days. It had a president, Congress, the whole thing, just like the United States of America, until the United States annexed it in 1812. This is an example of one of the pages of that document. You'll notice that it's all handwritten, it's well preserved, and we take our very, very, very cautious care of these items because once they're gone, they're gone. People come here and they want to know their assistant or their family. For example, this is John Mills. Some of the Mills family who now live in West Feliciana Parish in St. Francisville come here and they want to read about something that their ancestors signed. We celebrated the West Florida Republic bicentennial this past year. Quite interesting. After the Civil War, records of the Confederate state of Louisiana were transferred to Washington. In 1961, those records were returned to Louisiana and they were labeled Rebel Archives. Therefore, we name our Rebel Archives Rebel Archives. Other states name them Civil War records, but we name them after the identification on the package. And you'll be able to notice here, see. Now these records are mostly governmental records of the Confederacy. They may have a few personal records of the military, but basically they will trace the activities of the Confederacy. Louisiana had several capitals during the Confederacy. We moved from Baton Rouge to New Orleans to Donaldsonville to Opelousas and then to Shreveport. So we're unique in that respect. And other states received this in the early 60s also. We have governmental records, governmental agency records that are archival or historical in nature. For example, we have all of the Department of Highways, Department of Transportation and Development records, maps, highway maps, building sketches, architectural draftings of buildings, state buildings, are all part of our collections. When people come here, I like to tell them everyone in the audience is an archivist. We have governmental records here, but individuals have personal records, their scrapbooks, their yearbooks, their picture albums. Those are all individual archivists' possessions. This is Louisiana's historical jewelry box. We have jewels of history here. We preserve governmental records. We make them accessible to the public, and we secure them for posterity. Now, I like to make the analogy. Everyone knows about libraries. You know, you go to a library, you're going to find a book. Of course, nowadays with technology, it may be a little different, but typically a library is represented by books. Well, an archives is represented by original documents which are used for research purposes in writing these books. And that's what's important about archives, because they have original research records here. And once they're gone, they're gone.